Welcome, everyone. We are going today to apply universal design for learning checkpoints to the design of engaging online learning environments. My name's Karen Harris, and we have Natalia Kouraeva today, and we are both instructional designers at Rutgers University, teaching and learning with technology. So I'm an instructional designer who has some focus areas, by the way. I mostly try to put energy into helping faculty include learning outcomes assessment design when they are building courses and for programs. I've also worked in medical education, and I have a passion of working with faculty to build interactive learning both in the classroom and online. I'd like to mention that I'm a parent as well of both a college student and a high school student. And to make it relevant to this moment in time, they are both grappling with remote learning. And I get to watch what they experience. And I'm learning from their experience to better support faculty.
Very good, Karen. And my name is Natalia Kouraeva. I work with Karen. I'm also an instructional designer. And we work with a variety of faculty and staff and help them to design and run face-to-face, online, or hybrid courses. And I particularly interested in universal design for learning and accessibility and supporting students with, like, diverse students with special needs, especially. My previous experiences included working in K through 12 as a special education teacher and a technology teacher. I also used to be visiting assistant professor and help design and run a special education program, as well as adjunct instructor at a variety of different colleges. And we are very pleased that you are sharing part of your afternoon with us, and we're gonna start rolling.
And I want to mention, I think it's great for us to be able to have this introduction, partly to show that instructional designers come in various shapes and sizes and backgrounds. So, you know, I think it really impacts how we support faculty and what our approach is. So I do have learning objectives that I've set up for this presentation, but I wanted to start with an overarching goal, which is that as instructors, I think all of us want to inspire our students, our learners, to find purpose in their learning and to sustain and internalize their motivation to learn. So really, our thoughts are about lifelong learning. And it's interesting where we work at Rutgers University, we work in a building that's called the Lifelong Learning Center. And again, this is, I think, a theme that runs longitudinally through everything that we do. And before we begin, I want to be sure everyone is going to be on the same page. So for this session, we are going to really need your participation. This is going to be an interactive session, so we want to be sure that you have a mobile device available. And or a web browser window open running behind the scenes so that you can swipe over to go to your web browser as we post some URLs. And this is very important because we are relying on you to contribute your ideas and your expertise. I want to say that I feel that these virtual conferences are a very unique moment in time where we can get varied experiences, varied backgrounds, and everyone can come together and crowdsource their ideas. So today in this presentation, although Natalia and I did a little bit of work to get everything ready, we're going to hope that you're going to do a little bit of work as well as we move through this presentation. So here are the learning objectives for today. So I'm going to just take a moment to let you read them. And they might be a little bit more, they might be a little more complicated than they are in actuality. But first off, that we're going to talk about the brain's affective network. And we're going to talk about that because it is a major part of universal design for learning. So today, through Universal Design for Learning, we're going to discuss and describe the brain's affective network and how it's responsible for student engagement. And engagement, I think, has become kind of a buzzword because we now understand that engagement is critical for success in online learning environments. Then once we go through this process of talking about engagement, we're going to work together to map these affective network checkpoints that are within Universal Design to the QM rubric standards. So this is something that I actually haven't fully done. So that's why our participation is going to be important. I'm hoping that as we, really understand engagement, we want to see how through the QM rubric standards, we can really develop these engaging environments. So in that way, we're going to be applying those network checkpoints as a strategy to then design and deliver online learning experiences that align with those QM review standards. So I'm going to let Natalia jump in, but before we really talk about what is UDL, I wanted to ask everyone in the chat box to just say what level of experience you might have with Universal Design for Learning. So if you've never used it, you can say, we've never encountered Universal Design for Learning, or I've read about it, or I'm actively using Universal Design for Learning to infuse my design and delivery of courses. So in the
Thank
chat,
you, Karen.
Okay, Natalia's on.
I hope everybody will respond with, yes, we love UDL and we use it all the time. In any case, you're probably already familiar with that, but we will review it. Universal Design for Learning is a framework. It's an approach how to improve and optimize teaching and learning for all people based on scientific insights into how humans learn. So that's framework basically divided into three areas. First one, affective network, the why of learning. We're gonna slow down on that particular area in just a moment. First, I want to address the what of learning. And what of learning, it's recognition. And that includes such a thing such as knowledge, direction, resources, key core information, that content that you would like your learners to take away from your course. The next one is strategic network, the how of learning. And the how of learning means how you will, what you will provide, how you're going to guide them through that journey of learning, that they can, that your students can really master the content. So that means how you're going to set up your assignments, how they can demonstrate their knowledge, how you can support them in this learning environment. Make sure to provide them multiple ways of acting and expressing their learning and developing skills. And finally, let's now jump back to why of learning, because today will be our focus. And the why of learning is very, very important one. And that includes principles of motivation. It's guided by those principles. It's also allows students to reflect on their learning, allow them to reach out to their various interests, because we're talking about diverse learners, and they have natural differences in how they learn and how they interact with the content. So this how or affective or why of learning is exactly that area. So we need to make sure to provide options, choices, multiple modes of capturing interest and providing meaningful interactions with the content and with learners and with instructors. So this is why, and this is engagement, and this is very interesting and very creative area for us to really dig in.
Okay, so now to narrow things down to the why of learning. And again, I did take a peek at the chat window to see that we have a very broad range of people in this session, some people who have never heard of UDL before, and others who have been to UDL conferences. So, you know, I'm really hoping that at a minimum, we're inspiring some people to investigate further. And as you had seen on the previous slide, that we did have that, that URL. But for this session, we're only going to look at, you know, one of the three dimensions of universal design for learning. And that's this affective network, which is where our motivation resides. So I love that they call it the why of learning, maybe because as a parent and as just anybody who's been a student at any time, how many times have I had this thought, you know, why do I need to learn this? And once that happens, we might be losing our learners. But it's important to remember that although some may be asking, why do I need to learn this? Others are quite engaged, and they have made that connection. They have that motivation. So no matter what, again, we're looking at diverse learners. We have those who are asking why, and we have those who might have some kind of intrinsic motivation, or maybe they do have some direct connection with the content. So I want to ask you to think about how the affective network might be expressed in young children, how it might be expressed in young people who are in K-12 education, and also how this hits the ground in higher education. So I like to give a quick anecdotal story of my son and my daughter. I have a son who is not a big reader, doesn't love to read. And I have a daughter who does love to read. So we have some intrinsic motivation in one, and in the other, you know, the moment the books come out and the reading is out, he's asking, why do I need to learn this? Why do I need to read this? And I saw this happening early in his education, but at one moment in time, he became quite engaged in reading, and I wanted to know what the reading was, and it turned out he was reading Tom Sawyer, and he was so engaged in this book. And I made this connection looking at previous things he had been reading, and this was the first time that there was a male character who was the protagonist, and he was reading that book faster than I had ever seen. So to me, this is just one example. And then I think of myself as a college student, having had a core curriculum that I had certain courses I had to take, and one of them was contemporary civilization. So I like to think of, you know, the experiences that I've had. And in this contemporary civilization, I discovered that all the authors were men. And I could have disengaged very quickly. And then I look at my daughter, who is attending a women's college, and she's quite engaged in core curriculum because they have authors who are women. So again, this is just an anecdote to see where the engagement might happen or might not happen. So if there is not one means of engagement that is going to be optimal for all learners, because we can see in my two children, we couldn't come up with something that would work for both of them necessarily. When we use universal design for learning, we're going to be thinking about strategies that we can implement to effectively design multiple options for engagement. So here's a moment to engage. And what I would like everyone to do is to go to my poll everywhere. So you can go in a web browser, going to pollev.com, and you can enter Karen Harris 825, or you can text 22333, and once you get to that, once you've gotten to that, please type in Karen Harris 825. And I would like you to text in some traits or characteristics that may have an influence on individual variation in engagement. So my anecdotal story was to give you this idea of, you know, for my kids, Gender definitely was a very prominent motivator for what engaged them. Those were very visible traits that I saw. But there are so many others. So I wanted to take a moment to try a word cloud. Please let us know if you're having any trouble getting to my poll everywhere. I'm going to swipe over now to see if I can show. There we go, it's happening. So I'm going to go full screen with that. So please, you can respond more than once if you want. This is great. I know Natalia is going to love this. I can see her smiling already. Look at you. This is great. Thank you, everyone. I'm going to give it another minute, please. Like I said, you can respond more than once. Very interesting. So if anyone's having any trouble getting to this, all the information should be in the chat box now. But I'm going to keep this going because it's alive. Seeing some good things, hobbies, socioeconomic levels, learning styles. Some people might be visual learners, culture, maturity. I like that one.
Looks like interest take the center stage, which is absolutely the center word for affective network.
Very cool. Ability is a big one too, Natalia, it looks like.
Yes, yes.
What do you think of ability? And of course, access. Woo.
Accessibility.
Access, which can be accessibility. Okay, what do you think? We should move forward, yes?
I think this is lovely cloud.
This is the best, right? Whatever we participate in to build, I'm going to try my best to capture it and post it after the session with Quality Matters. So, moving forward, the why. Why do I need to learn this? Why should I be engaged in this? I created this little image that really doesn't even scratch the surface, but I tried to think of some overarching ideas like personal relevance or having just the skill or the proclivity in a topic. But there's culture, of course, and gender and economic status.
Yes, Karen, that's a good graphic. Even so, it's only outline and highlight the major areas. But I just want to add to that, that the older person gets, when we're children and we're just told, well, just learn this, you will need it in the future. So kids kind of accept that. But as we're growing up and, starting in somewhere in middle school, high school, that why becomes is really, really important. And the older person is, that why is really becomes a center of learning, because if I feel like I don't need it, I don't have time for that. I don't want to spend my time and effort to learn something that is not relevant. So always remember to provide opportunity to your learners to reflect and really make that connection. Why all the students really learn much better if it's they have personal relevance. For example, if you provide a training and they know that they will use that training immediately, they will pay a lot more attention, be interested to learn. If you just give them some information that may or may not be useful in their day-to-day life. So keep that in mind, that why is very, very important for adult learners, and give them opportunity to make that connection and reflect on their learning and why. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. So Natalia gave me this longer list when I showed her my more abbreviated image. So again, so many things that make our learners diverse, things that we can and cannot see. This is an important thing to be thinking about when we are designing engagement, when we're proactively trying to reach out and engage our audience. So I'm going to let Natalia move to, we're going to dig into universal design for learning.
Absolutely. Well, as we mentioned here in title, that diversity is kind of a word that is very widely used, and sometimes we have certain association with that word. Okay, of course, age and race and ethnicity and language come to mind right away, but each person is more complex than just a quick label, right? And a lot of things can affect how we functioning in the world and society and how we learn. And so I just list some of the things. And again, it's not a complete list, just as a point for us to start thinking about that. For example, economic status could be making huge difference, right? What people find relevant or not. Disabilities, and of course, that's my area of interest and expertise. And disabilities can be visible and not visible. We might not see the ADHD or learning disability in a person, while we will see if somebody has some physical disability. Different interests, different skill level, different level of grit, how much effort person is willing to put. When we look at the room full of students, we don't know what they bring with you. We don't know what past experience that they have to live through, what kind of story each person has. And it doesn't go away in the classroom. So we have to make sure that we leave some of our classroom material and assignments and other learning opportunities to be flexible and relevant, so people can really make those connections and find their own learning path, that will depend on their all of these facts and factors, and maybe even more that are not listed there. Thank you. We can go.
Okay, so that was actually my college student who ran behind the scenes, and I wanted to actually use her as a little bit of a transition. It's kind of funny that she came at just the right moment. I'm watching her now move to this remote experience, and she was actually in a study abroad program. So she is now taking online courses from the university where she was studying, and she also has one from her university in the United States. They're having them put them together. So she's taking 5 online courses right now. Again, some from a remote institution that is in another country, and one is in this country. And I'm finding it interesting to see how the different faculty and the different courses are working to recruit interest. So I will say initially that the courses she's taking are ones that she chose in her area of study. So recruiting interest hasn't been the main focal point, but bringing them back in, because these were face-to-face courses. So now that they're suddenly fully remote, I think that the design has to change to have a new way to recruit interest and to sustain the effort as well. And then also knowing that there are going to be many challenges, because they might say things like, why am I learning this? And I didn't sign up for it to be delivered this way. And now we also have to have them dealing with different stressors and how they can, and different, I guess, responses to how the learning is being delivered in a new way. So how will they now self-regulate? And all of this, amazingly, is within universal design for learning. It's already there. And that's, I guess, I feel like I'm happy to be with Natalia to promote this. So I'm going to jump now. So we were looking at the why of learning and engagement. And within universal design for learning, we have checkpoints for each of those 3 guidelines. So I want to step back for a moment for those who are not familiar with UDL, so that you understand what the numbering actually is here. There are, I believe, 9 guidelines. So today, in universal design for learning, today we're only going to be working with 3 of the guidelines that are within the why of learning and engagement. So we're going to start with how, using universal design for learning, we recruit interest. And this is how students will basically have access to what we're going to teach. I believe, Natalia, I'm going to have you start with 7.1 to talk about.
Optimize individual choice and anatomy. Very, very important. Sometimes instructors give just, same kind of assignments. Okay, everybody research this particular topic. Everybody will write this type of paper, and there's no variation whatsoever. Well, it might work for someone, and it's probably not going to work for all, or most likely will not work for most. So allowing the choices of topics, of way to express the new knowledge, of way to share it, is a good way to optimize and recruit that interest. When people have choices, we get their buy-in much faster. So allow them, again, allow that room for flexibility so a learner can be in charge of their own learning. Karen?
Okay, so 7.2 is probably one of my favorites, specifically authenticity and designing learning that is authentic. And something that I specialize in often is also designing assessment that is authentic. So for this particular checkpoint, we want to connect learning to experiences that are both meaningful and also individually valuable. This does not necessarily mean that the situation has to be equivalent to real life, but it does have to be relevant and authentic to the learner's individual goals and their interests. And more importantly, it also needs to be aligned with instructional goals.
7.3, minimize threats and distraction. Well, again, allowing your learners to kind of have an opportunity to do what they're interested in, and also allowing them a safe space to learn and to make mistakes and take risks, and that would be okay. So providing them guidance, what you want exactly to be achieved in this assignment or in this learning activity, again, will help them to stay focused and get to the place where you want them to get in their learning journey.
So as we move through this, I'm hoping you're going to see, partly because we're going to be wrapping up soon, that these checkpoints, if as we go through them, you might be thinking about the quality matters higher education rubric, because that's what we're going to begin making a connection to. So these are the checkpoints for sustaining effort. So I think I'm going to start with 8.1, which is where we're going to heighten salience of goals, the salience of the goals and the objectives. So we want to set a vision for the goal and why it would matter. Some learners will need support to remember the initial goal or to maintain a consistent vision of the rewards of actually working to reach that goal. For those learners, it's important to build in periodic reminders of both the goal and its value. So consider displaying the goal in multiple ways, and perhaps also taking those long-term goals and breaking them into short-term, perhaps module or unit level objectives.
Vary demands and resources to optimize challenge. Demands could be presenting challenge at different levels for different learners. For somebody, maybe you can set higher demands, and for somebody you have to maybe modify them and provide flexible tools for support. So again, keeping in mind individual abilities and interest level and backgrounds is really will help everybody to stay focused and sustain their effort. When person feels overwhelmed, they most likely won't just give up. And if another person feels that it's too easy, they already know that same result, they don't want to continue. So your instruction, your direction and your demands, your objectives have to be flexible enough to allow each person to adjust them to their own levels.
Okay, this is probably tied with my other favorite of these checkpoints, which is fostering collaboration and community. I'm not going to talk too much to this one beyond saying that, you know, the learner community is so important, especially in the way we deliver online learning, that it's so important to develop that community early on, and then throughout your course instruction, that you foster the collaboration with different peer-to-peer and group interactions.
8.4, increase mastery-oriented feedback. So again, providing timely feedback and outlining areas where things, what students should be focused on or working on is very important. So please just be visible and be present in your courses, and that will help your students a lot.
Okay. The last one is self-regulation, which I would love to give this whole one to Natalia, because I find this one to be the most challenging. And I think she is probably the best at this. But I will definitely start with promoting expectations and beliefs that optimize motivation. So for this, we want to set personal goals that inspire confidence, but also ownership of learning. One important aspect of self-regulation is the personal knowledge each learner has about what he or she finds motivating. So this is the stuff that is intrinsic. To accomplish this, we should be fostering positive beliefs that learning goals can in fact be met, and maintain the belief that through any frustrations that will come up during the process, they still will be making progress towards meeting those goals.
Okay, 9.2, facilitate personal coping skills and strategies. And by facilitating, I mean that we as instructor have to be aware that sometimes students may be struggling with the load of work, also with other parts of their lives interfering. There's a lot of anxiety, especially in present moment. So
Yes.
what we can do, we can help them. We can support them through our courses, and as we develop and content, and as we integrating integrating mechanism to support them. For example, you can take your big project and you can definitely divide it, chunk it into parts, and allocate enough time to not only receive small portions, but also provide feedback to that small portion and guide students to continue to the next one. We don't have to look at the huge mountain ahead of us. We can do one step at a time, and we can also facilitate that one step at a time learning. We want also make sure to organize the content and materials in a way that is easy to navigate. We don't want our students spending time and effort and get frustrated by where to look for material. We want them to focus on the main concepts and master their skills. So just think in advance how you can support the learner, what you can do to make sure that course is inviting, understandable, easy to navigate, well supported, that there's a clear way for communication with the professor, how they can ask questions, what they should expect. So all of those things, if you put them in place, they will support your learners, and learners will do much better in your course.
I'm letting you finish this, Natalia.
Okay, thank you. Okay, develop self-assessment and reflection. Yes, self-assessment will come at the beginning. It doesn't have to be your final exam. Of course, we're not asking students to prepare 50 questions for their self-assessment, but if you provide them with opportunity to design their own learning path and to design their own way they're going to express what they learn, that is developing self-assessment. So they will choose how they're gonna share what they learn. They might choose to create a webinar. They might choose to develop a PowerPoint presentation with narration. They might choose to write a research paper, and always provide the opportunity to reflect. I like to include reflect points as course going on. kind of like, a few times, just check in. So students, how are you doing? What is going well? What is not going well? So that gives me chance as instructor to adjust my course and material, and also give students an opportunity to really think about their own learning, and again, relevance, and where are they in the process. We don't want to be that process so outside of them that they don't really relate and connect to. So that, again, talking, like heart to heart, what is going on, what is really going on, are you really engaged in learning, and are you really have the opportunity to reflect, is very important. Provide those opportunities. And of course, at the end of the course, you want to get in touch with your students to get their feedback for your next run of the course, and also give them opportunity to kind of summarize and conclude, and really capture the learning of this course.
Okay, so I'm moving forward to have a quick touch on the QM framework of standards. Before we do that, I just wanted to mention that I came up with this idea of mapping the UDL checkpoints for engagement that we just went over prior to our current emergency situation. So what we're doing is probably, or what I'm recommending by bringing these UDL checkpoints into the QM framework and aligning them, is relatively time consuming, and it's really focused on designing online courses, not necessarily remotely delivered courses. That said, I think this is a great opportunity for us to crowdsource our experience and our knowledge, and perhaps we can build this alignment together. So I'm going to let Natalia quickly talk about quality matters, and
Sure.
then we're going to step you through how we're going to have this group activity of setting up alignment.
Well, we are at Quality Matter Conference, so I know everybody is very much aware of the standards and we appreciate them. And particularly Standard 8 is about accessibility and usability, and in overview statement, it's even lists universal design for learning, and that the fact that it's course designed to utilize its principles and reflects a commitment to accessibility, ensuring all learners can access all course and content and activities, and to usability, ensuring all learners can easily navigate and interact with course components. And accessibility and usability is really step one, or level one, and it's very, very important. We know that if a person cannot access something, they cannot really learn from that, they cannot interact with the curriculum and things like that. However, I do want to mention that accessibility and usability is just a level one, and really universal design for learning goes much further than just access and usability. So keep that in mind, and things that we just discussed previously as multiple ways to present information and multiple ways to provide learners with opportunity to express what they learn. All of that is important, and it's going throughout your course. It's not just add on, and it's not just checking for accessibility at the end of it. Built with that idea, how these diverse learners will really learn in my course, how they interact, how they access, and how they're going to interact with curriculum, how they're going to interact with each other. So all of that has to be layer, layer, and layer. And yes, it is very much aligned with QM and UDL, and I can think of other theories such as differentiated instruction and Vygotsky and all other kind of things that really interact and come together.
Okay. So I want to move partly because it might seem like I'm rushing, but I want to be sure that we have time to try to engage in this activity. But I do want to mention as well that this mind map that I have is a MindMeister mind map. And it is a wiki, and I'm going to leave it open. So you don't have to do this right now. And I know a lot of you are new to Universal Design for Learning, so you're still kind of thinking about all those checkpoints and processing that. But my goal is, if you can see, this is a quick screen capture from the mind map that I developed. And just to show you, it starts with a QM standard, which moves to a specific standard. and then I'm mapping it to one of the UDL checkpoints for engagement, because I want you to see, or I want to work together so that we can see where in the QM rubric we can infuse engagement, which is the why. So, you know, again, to motivate our learners. So again, in this case, assessment and measurement, we might not be thinking so much about engagement happening there. But if we go to the specific standard, we want to, specific and descriptive criteria are provided for evaluation of learners' work. So we might, in this place, build in self-assessment and reflection, which is from Universal Design for Learning. So again, we might not have made that initial connection looking just at the Quality Matters standards. So I want to take us now to this MindMeister Wiki mind map. So this is the short URL that you can just type into your URL bar in your web browser. But I think we also, in our chat, right, we're going to be, I'm going to post, or I'm asking that we post both this short URL and the direct URL to this MindMeister Wiki mind map. And again, I'm really hoping for your participation, because I'm going to download this map once we've got a lot of participation, and I want to, you know, submit it so that you can go back to it, and as you're thinking about applying Quality Matters standards, you can take that next step and also apply the checkpoints of Universal Design for Learning. So I'm going to see if I can, there we are. I want to get to, I'm going to actually show you the map. So here's the map. Once you go to that URL, if you go to the very center of the map where it says map UDL checkpoints for engagement to the QM Higher Ed rubric, if you click on this little icon to the right, it looks like it has little lines. What you're going to see is I've put in all 10 of the checkpoints that we went over together today. They're all there. From recruiting interest, there's 3, sustaining effort, there's 4 more, and self-regulate, there's 3 more. So you can copy. So if I wanted to, you know, again, put this heighten the salience of goals and objectives, I can come here and I can copy it. And perhaps I'm going to go over here to QM Standard 2, where there's learning objectives, and maybe I think that this one would work well here, just where the course learning objectives and competencies describe outcomes that are measurable. So maybe I feel that that UDL checkpoint maps to this QM specific standard. So I have to click on that standard, and then I click on this plus sign at the top, and I'm just going to paste it in there. So now I'm mapping, again, a UDL checkpoint to a QM specific standard. So I've put in all of the checkpoints. They're all here. Again, in this little text bubble at that centerpiece, they're all there. So you don't have to worry about looking for them on the CAST website or in our presentation. They're all there. And I'm going to say the other piece that I had in mind is, if you are motivated to do so, beyond, you know, aligning these UDL checkpoints to QM specific standards, the next level would be to actually think of and propose ways that you could implement these Universal Design for Learning checkpoints. So if I come here to this one, which I had shown, which is about assessment and measurement, and I'm suggesting that we can align developing self-assessment and reflection here, I can suggest another level, perhaps saying administer a quiz that specifies questions promoting self-assessment. So that's an actual way we can take these checkpoints and turn them into design. Oh, I'm seeing some things come up. This is great. So I'm hoping you saw that right there, but I'm zoomed in, so I'd have to look around. I'm hoping that, again, everyone should be able to get in here and begin mapping. And again, we're going to have a crowdsourced way of really designing, engaging, interactive activities in our courses that also meet QM standards. So I don't know, Natalia, that's really about all I have. And I'm literally just going to, I wanted to move around in here a little bit to see, yes, some things are coming up.
Thank you so much for participation. I know it's not so easy as, of course, as everybody else, we planned this presentation to be face-to-face, where we can really engage you and walk around the room and create something together. So this is a technology and web-based substitution for our learning activities of this presentation. So thank you so much for not giving up.
But I mean, one of the things I will say is also that is something to take away from this as well, I think, is that if we were face-to-face, it would have been fully synchronous. But because this isn't face-to-face, we can be working on this map asynchronously and then come back together to look at it. Okay.
So Karen and Natalia, we have a couple questions.
Okay.
So one is, so all of QM is there and we're adding UDL, right? And I think they're talking about the mind map.
Wait, say that again?
Yes, yes, it's correct.
All of QM is there, so all of the standards are there and we're adding UDL.
Yes.
Correct.
I put all of QM in there. Your job is to add the UDL in places that might seem obvious, and even maybe some places that are not so obvious where UDL can be aligned.
And yes, and the next question is only for UDL 7, 8, and 9. Yes, we're focusing on that just because we're focusing on engagement and why of learning today. So yes, please, we're staying with those checkpoints that we outlined earlier in presentation. And how long will this be open for contribution? Very good question, and thank you for that. We're going to leave it open. Karen, would you say maybe another couple or 3 hours for today? So everybody.
I think I'm going to say it can be longer than that. I did say that I was going to send this along to QM, so you know, so that you'll be able to go back and look, and others will be able to see what we've come up with together. So you're all on the hook for me to have something valid and valuable to submit as a document for this presentation. I think I'll probably try to send it in tomorrow, or maybe I might even wait until Monday. So if you guys are feeling busy on the weekend, or not busy, I'm going to say on the weekend, please come
and want to review UDL and QM connection, please feel free to do that. And this would be an activity that you can engage, and maybe as you're doing that, review your courses.
Okay, so
and as we're working, I want to mention a couple more things, Karen. As you guys working on the mapping, I want to recommend a couple of things. So when you start integrating UDL, and especially if you're trying to really use two frameworks to work on your courses, start with small steps. Don't start and just overhaul the whole thing. Start perhaps with a specific lessons and with like 1 or 2 learning goals. Start slowly and really take it from there. Don't just scratch everything and begin. Also, another important part that I want to share is, if possible, try to involve your students as partner in learning and let them drive that change. Really talk to them what worked for them, what didn't work for them. It's okay to be a little bit vulnerable with students, because they are much more responsive when they know that you are also a learner. You're teaching them content, but you're also learning how to do it better and better. So try to use students' input and really tell them that it's valuable for you, and that will help your course to be better. And last but not least, of course, flexible. Well, flexible is my favorite word. And being flexible and providing multiple ways to access information, providing multiple ways that students can demonstrate their learning, and providing multiple ways that they can engage with the curriculum is very, very important. So start small use your students, and keep in mind the word flexible and multiple. Those are good keywords for you to keep in mind if you're really trying to revamp or improve your courses based on UDL principles. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, everyone. We have our contact information up here, so really feel free to let us know what you're thinking, what you're doing, especially as you take a deeper dive into UDL.
Absolutely.
Well, I want to thank Karen and Natalia for presenting today in this new modality. Thank you very much for a wonderful session. I have posted in the chat the links to the session survey as well as the conference survey. So thank you everyone for attending today.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Have a great weekend, everyone.
And please be safe. Stay
Yes.
safe, everyone.